Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, and I have a question. DMs of Reddit, are there certain things you do just to get a scare out of your players? I really want to know, because I'm all about the spooky, scary stuff. I'm in a campaign with someone that also DMs with another group. He told me that recently his party killed an NPC for no good reason, so he took a page of notes from the table and ripped it in half without saying a word. His players freaked out and started asking, what was that? He responded, haha, well, it doesn't matter now. Then they panicked amongst themselves for a while after that. He told me it was actually just a random NPC and the paper he ripped up was a page of notes completely unrelated. He just wanted his players to feel like killing this NPC would have dire consequences. Does anyone else do anything similar to psychologically screw with your players? My favorite is simply saying, "Are you sure?" But there was a time when one of my players went above and beyond and scared the other players for me. This is a bit of a long story, so sorry in advance. Also, keep in mind, we were playing through Discord and Roll20, not at a table, so rolls could be made so other people can see it without them knowing the context. Finally, hand sorcerers are a special trait that I have homebrewed for humanoid races that allows one to concentrate on 2 spells in exchange for the use of the hands during channeling and being unable to cast any other spell with shamanic components. Due to a travel complication, my party lost some time trying to get to a group of goblins they were hunting down who managed to steal the party's travel wagon along with the MacGuffin to the campaign, an amulet the archmage of the previous war used to channel the power of the god magic. The majority of the party wanted to camp for the evening as it was getting late, but one player who was playing the part of a war veteran was disgusted by their lack of endurance and commitment to the cause, as he saw firsthand what this amulet was capable of. He insisted on proceeding during the night to reach the goblins in a timely manner before they could get away. The party denied him, so he went on alone. Are you sure? Of course. My character, once being in the army, would be adept to long marches in this kind of condition, so he would do it. I took the player into another Discord channel, explained to him that going through the night, he arrives at the fort they believed the goblins were at. I asked him to roll a constitution, and he fails it, so he ends up collapsing just outside the fort. When he came to, he was beside a fire with one of the goblins he was trying to find, cooking a potato and chicken stew. The player assesses the situation and determines he is not in any danger. So he tells me to not take any of his rolls seriously other than the rolls I ask him to make. He then rolls to attack with disadvantage, rolling a natural 1 that would cause a fumble. He explained to me that he was going to be making random rolls to keep other players who were seeing these rolls with no context, as they were in another chat room, guessing. He told me he was going to talk with the goblins, but use his attack rolls as persuasion rolls. I did not cause him to have any fail rolls during this whole interaction, even with low rolls. He learned that the goblins were expecting the party and that they had deactivated the traps guarding their home in order to meet them. This group of goblins were prisoners during the recent war and had horrible experiments performed in them that gave them increased intelligence and abilities. Basically, they could concentrate on 2 spells at one time by giving up the use of their hands during the channeling. They had been forced into hiding and highway robbery to survive, as the leading figure of the nearby towns called them heretics and forced them to flee when they sought help. However, when they stole from the party and realized just how expensive the stuff they stole were, they had hoped to negotiate, offering to return all their valuables other than food and blankets. They did not outsmart the party after all, and still goblins, in exchange for their assistance trying to convince the town to accept them. The war veteran played his role very well, seeing the goblins as victims of the war he participated in and felt a connection with them. So much so that he wanted to play a prank on his companions for being weak-willed and not willing to travel through the night. He said the prank would be a show of goodwill towards the goblins, to show there was no hard feelings over their stolen gear after learning their situation, especially after the chieftain shown knowledge of the amulet and chose not to use it. He explained to the goblins that he wanted to pretend he had died because of the party's laziness, have corpses of goblins spread around him, their missing gear scattered around the area, and in the middle of the crevice, the goblins had made their base, the dead corpse of the war veteran holding close to his chest the MacGuffin. The goblins were immediately on board with this plan, and using their abilities to scavenge, tinker, and concentrate on 2 spells at once, set up the crevice to make it appear like a battlefield. One of the non-magical goblins worked to make over the war veteran with tribal paint to make it appear he was bleeding. They stuck a few javelins in his back before sealing the wounds quickly. It was spectacular how much prep work we were able to come up with within the 15 minutes we were away from the others. All the while, the veteran was making random rolls with no context to the players. Then, as if the stars aligned and the deities wanted this prank to happen, he rolled his first death saving throw, and natural 1. The prank was ready. I removed the veteran's character sheet from the view of the players and went back into their channel. They were freaking out. They were scared that they lost their fighter, they were worried the goblins learned how to activate the MacGuffin, they were discussing the spells they were preparing, literal havoc was taking place, and the session ends. That's a real assy move. Over the course of the next week, each time any of my D&D group gamed together, the topic of the giant god-infused goblin that they had to fight in the next session always came up. Me and the veteran couldn't stop laughing anytime the topic was brought up, being the only ones who knew. The goblins are meant to be used later in the campaign as a resource when something actually threatening gets a hold of the amulet. They themselves were actually not a threat, even if the party chose to attack and kill them. Fast forward on to the next session. The veteran had set up a new character sheet to make it appear as though his character was outright dead. In reality, it was just the character sheet I had written up for the chieftain of these goblins, just with half-orc as the race instead of goblin. They approached the crevice/fort where the goblins were. While the party approached, the goblins began casting illusion spells, minor illusion to cause shadows to move, thaumaturgy to make it sound as though there was a giant goblin in the fort, and silent image to cause effects. The fort was made up with goblin traps that were engineered to be less lethal to ensure the party would survive. There were 5 goblin casters following them within passages in the walls, each of them capable of concentrating on 2 spells, each due to the homebrew class I gave them. Hand Sorcerer, able to maintain concentration on a spell by using one's hands as a focus. So one was covering the arrow slits in the walls with minor illusion to hide their position. As the party proceeded through this mini dungeon, they were constantly peppered by traps and strange occurrences that could be explained by the MacGuffin they were seeking, when in reality, it was just the goblins following through the walls casting minor spells. I played off the fact that not much was affecting the party due to bad rolls on my half, but in reality, illusions don't hurt. As a matter of fact, the party caused much more harm to themselves traversing these crevices than any of those traps or illusions. Eventually, however, they reached the center of the fort where, lying upon the ground, they saw the corpse of the war veteran, clutching something against their chest. Everyone started giving their condolences to their fallen companion, and as they reached to retrieve the MacGuffin, laughter started to echo around them. The chamber lit up, revealing 10 goblins surrounding them and a much larger goblin standing on a pedestal around them. The party leapt into action, immediately charging towards the goblins, only to have their weapons pass through them. The party was confused until they heard the laughter of their previously dead companion. The war veteran stands up and pulls the javelins out of his back and throws them on the ground. 6 goblins emerge from secret passages around the chamber, and the veteran and the goblins begin to laugh. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief after they realized the entire setup was a prank. There was so much laughter after all the anticipation to find out they were actually had. After the goodwill and spirit that the group shown, even after being outsmarted by the goblins twice now, the party made extremely fast friends with the tribe, having not needing to make any sort of checks at all, as the party and tribe had a grand feast to celebrate their new alliance. The party had taken up this crevice with the goblins as their new home base and are working together with their new friends to furnish it, making it a livable area where they can safely protect the amulet until they can figure out how to destroy it. The veteran had taken the Goblin chieftain to the town to have some choice words with the mayor in regards to reversing their heretic status. And finally, the wizard of the group is beginning to teach the hand sorcerers how to expand their understanding of the magic that had been forced upon their tribe. And after all of that, I, as the DM, chose not to have them roll any skill checks at all. The amount of roleplay and thought that the veteran put in, I felt needed to be rewarded, and the players being good sports over being scared to death for an entire week was also enough to be rewarded as well. Sorry this was such a long post, but needless to say, this all started with me saying, "Are you sure?" to a player, and the effects from that just snowballing way out of control. I felt it was an appropriate story to tell. Hey everyone, I hope you liked the story and that you're hungry for more, as part 2 is out next week. The rest of this awesome story, which I genuinely did like, is from our own little subreddit, but no peeking, that would be naughty. Speaking of, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to check out r/MrRipper, which is our, coincidentally, happy little subreddit. You can post stories of your own on there, in a pre-existing thread, or be a hero and make one of your own for others to partake in, as you never know when we're going to read one live or use one in a vid like this. And using your help action, you can click on that big old happy retro looking face right here. That's me, Brian Von VA, the voice actor and narrator in this video and in many others too, especially the positive ones, because that's just my shindig. Come on over to my YouTube where I talk about all things voice actor related, do some VA challenges, and of course have fun streaming some games too, while being a generally positive guy to everyone around me, because we need a little bit more brightness in this dark world, don't we? Now, a good positive vibe to end on would be this: maintain your inner imagination and creativity, and let it out for all of us to see. Originality is bred through the creativity that your soul carries from all the experiences you've had. It is one of the quintessential spices to life that grants us grand amounts of variety. And us humans, we genuinely appreciate the time and effort that people take in crafting passionate stories and ideas like the one in today's video. So, to that end, be safe, be happy, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.